What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast. Today, we are going to talk about three steals at the quarterback position. These quarterbacks you can draft late in your draft. You don't have to prioritize a quarterback early. These guys will help you win in 2022. Let's get it.
Welcome to the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast with Waiver Wire Queen.
Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have a lot of great content, which is going to help you prepare for your upcoming fantasy football draft and help you compete at the highest level every week. Let's talk about these three quarterbacks. I will rate these three quarterbacks from third all the way to my top favorite late round still at the quarterback position. So let's talk about Derek Carr. I've talked about Derek Carr quite a bit this offseason, going into the preseason, and that hasn't changed. Derek Carr has a number one wide receiver and Devontae Adams. He hasn't had a number one since Amari Cooper. Obviously, he has other weapons. Darren Waller is someone he has leaned on a lot the last few years. Last season, Darren Waller dealt with a lot of injuries. This year, we're hoping that he is 100% healthy for the most part in 2022, and that's just going to be another weapon. Hunter Renfrow finally had his breakout season last year. Then you add in Josh Jacobs, who is always solid. They drafted Zamir White. Keep in mind, they have Brandon Bolden too now. Kenyon Drake is no longer in the building, and you have a lot of weapons which will help Derek Carr. Statistically in 2021 wasn't that bad, but it could have been better in some categories. He threw for 4,804 yards, had 23 touchdowns versus 14 interceptions. I want to see those interceptions come down a bit and those touchdowns increase. I would love to see him hit 35 touchdowns in 2022. It is possible. He has the talent, the coaching staff, the offense to produce 35 touchdowns, and I want to get those interceptions under 14. Can't have 14 interceptions and 24 touchdowns. That's just not going to cut it. Throwing for over 30 touchdowns should be easy in today's NFL. He's only thrown for over 30 touchdowns once in his career, with 32 in 2015, and that isn't great. But again, Derek Carr has been more consistent than what people are saying and the energy that's being put out there. Most people would think he's always inconsistent, but no, he has been solid and consistent for what he has around him. And that's why I'm saying this year it should be more consistency. And obviously he's still most likely going to be in that 45 to 4,800 passing yards. He'll get that. But again, if he can increase those touchdowns and decrease those interceptions, you're going to feel a whole lot better about drafting Derek Carr with confidence. He should be going in as between the 14 and 16 quarterback off the board. If you are in your draft and you start noticing that you haven't drafted your quarterback and you have been prioritizing Derek Carr, make sure if you got to go up and grab him around earlier, do it. Don't wait and think that, well, there are a few more quarterbacks ahead of him, so I can allow him to pass one more round and then draft him. No, you won't get him, because once everybody start taking those other few quarterbacks who have been going ahead of him, just know that he's gonna be drafted. And once it gets back around to you, you won't have him in mind. But another quarterback you can prioritize, and you can prioritize this guy extremely late. And when I mean late, I mean late. Ryan Tannehill. I'm not the biggest fan of Ryan Tannehill, but I do believe he's going to have a bounce back season for the Tennessee Titans. 2021 was a down season for him. It simply was. I mean, wow. Slightly a few hundred yards less than the 3,800 he produced in 2020. 3,734 yards, 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. That isn't great. I don't like the 21 to 14 interception ratio. That is horrible. That has to improve. I do believe it's going to improve. And also keep in mind, they're going to utilize Ryan Tannehill also in the red zone with those quarterback sneaks. He's going to be taking some of them damn touchdowns away from Derrick Henry. But keep in mind, Titans are a run-first team. They need to lean on Derrick Henry to set up Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill was successful in 2020 because Derrick Henry, and they have to keep in mind that that is what drives the Tennessee Titans offense. Derrick Henry, and then Ryan Tannehill. Keep that formula going, and Derrick Henry obviously is going to have a bounce back year, but Ryan Tannehill will have a bounce back year, and you'll see those interceptions hopefully go down a little bit and those touchdowns slightly go up. It is not impossible for Ryan Tannehill to hit 30 touchdowns. What I will say is he does have a lot of weapons. However, you have to keep in mind, he's going to be throwing the ball to a whole group of new players, with the exception of Nick Westbrook. He has Robert Woods, who is a hell of a wide receiver. Currently, Robert Woods projects to be his number one target. Keep in mind, they had A.J. Brown. They traded A.J. Brown during the NFL draft for Treylon Burks, because I don't understand why, considering everything that's been going on with Treylon Burks. Currently, Burks' stock is down. It is at the lowest because he hasn't even been able to put together a solid preseason or be on the field in order to, show us that, hey, y'all can have confidence in me based on what happened before preseason started. It's all good. Well, he's still dealing with some things. And so he's not even projected to be the wide receiver 2 opposite of Tannehill. It is right now Nick Westbrook. I do expect that to change at some point. It has to change. Otherwise, the trade of A.J. Brown is going to hurt them long term, because you don't trade away your number one wide receiver and not expect the young wide receiver that they drafted to produce. And I don't think they expected all that's been going on with Burks. However, Robert Woods is still solid. So again, the Titans are a run first team, and Tannehill should still be able to produce and get those touchdowns up and decrease some of those interceptions. They also added Austin Hooper, who is obviously there to catch the damn football. He's going to have a bounce back season as well. So you got a lot of players looking to bounce back off a bad 2021. And in Austin Hooper's case, he hasn't been good since he was on the Falcons. But nonetheless, Ryan Tannehill still has the weapons to be able to produce. They just have to remember who the hell they are, and they are a run-first team. And you can still be successful with the run-first formula because they were successful in 2020. Okay, he's finished in the top 15, the last 2 years as well. So you already know that I project that he will finish in the top 15, and he's going to be a whole lot better than what people are expecting and his current ADP. So draft Ryan Tannehill with confidence. If nothing else, you can use him in spot start situations in DFS. You can draft him as your backup quarterback to come off the bench, especially if you're taking a chance on some of these other quarterbacks and they end up not producing. Ryan Tannehill is going to be all right this year, y'all. Keep that in mind. And coming in at number 1, Kirk Cousins. That's right, y'all. Kirk Cousins with the Vikings. He has been way more consistent than most people would give him credit, including myself. I always talk trash about Kirk Cousins, but when you look at the numbers, he produces. Okay, he simply does. He's always going to finish in the top 15 at the quarterback position. He's always going to be drafted late as an afterthought, because most people are looking at him like, oh, no, doesn't have the flashy name, but he produces. And if you're one of those people who simply do not want to invest in a quarterback early in your draft, Kirk Cousins is a priority. If you want to go on and get Justin Jefferson and maybe pair Kirk Cousins with him later on, that would be a hell of a duo and will keep your team competitive, okay? Let's be clear. Kirk Cousins ain't falling off, all right? He's not falling off, and y'all have to understand that in 2022, Kirk Cousins is going to do what he did in 2020 and 2021. Produce, be consistent, be low-key about his production, and get the job done. So people who go on and prioritize the running back position early and then later on pick someone like Kirk Cousins to be their starting quarterback, it has been a good formula for them. 2021, 4,221 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That is beautiful production for a quarterback that you're drafting late. Some people are smart enough to prioritize him as their backup, but why can't you prioritize him as your starter and load up on your skill positions? And now you have Kirk Cousins as your starting quarterback who you didn't reach and draft early, and you were able to cash in on some of those other premium positions, maybe at the running back position or the wide receiver position, whichever one. What I'm saying is take a chance on Kirk Cousins late. It's going to pay off. Again, great weapons. Justin Jefferson, come on now. He may finish as the wide receiver 1 at the end of the fantasy football season. Adam Thielen, he's always injured. However, he's still very solid. Dalvin Cook, stop hating on Dalvin Cook. Still a top 10 running back in fantasy football. KJ Osborne had a slight breakout season last year, will improve this year. And Irv Smith, the talented tight end who, was going to have his season last year to be potentially a breakout year, but injuries derailed that. Again, Kirk Cousins is very consistent and underrated and should be on your radar if you do not want to draft a quarterback early. Make sure you guys leave some comments and let me know your thoughts on these 3 quarterbacks and where you should draft them. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We have a lot of great content, which is going to help you prepare for the upcoming 2022 fantasy football season and help you prepare every week so you can stay ahead of your competition and compete at the highest level for a championship. Make sure you check us out on Spotify, Apple, and iTunes. We are out here in these fantasy football streets. We have a lot of great content, which is going to help you. I'll see y'all on Friday. We have a great show. We're going to do a mock draft via Yahoo. Again, we're going to start doing more mock drafts on various platforms. This is going to be a redraft league. So tune in for more fantasy football with the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast, y'all.
Thanks for listening to the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast.